Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue our journey watching Welcome to Plathville. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. Let's get to the show and see if anything of interest comes out of my face.
I've done a few things without my parents, but I've never been as far as California. That's all just new and different and something I've always wanted to do. My parents don't approve of the overall culture of California, so I hope I can get permission. And if that happens, I might die.
So the parents don't approve of the overall culture of California. What does that even mean? California has millions and millions of people, and there are thousands and thousands of cultures, and there are small towns and large towns and conservative areas and liberal areas and religious areas and non-religious and Mormon areas, and so it's a little funny thing is we disapprove of California.
So Lydia and the little girl.
They just showed a lot of guitar cases, which makes me think that the whole family is in one big band. So I got to see that.
San Francisco.
Okay. It's a big city. There's a lot of things that they have going on in San Francisco that they don't have in South Georgia. But to me, the two biggest concerns would be, drugs and human trafficking. How long would you be gone?
Okay, so that's interesting. Where does that come from? Certainly, if you live in Seattle and San Francisco are considered to be similar cities enough that, and I've been to San Francisco a number of times, that I could say this with some assuredness that the risk of her becoming human trafficked, it's interesting that the mother is worried about that the mother is worried about human trafficking and drugs. Now, I think you would be a bad mother if you weren't at least slightly concerned about what could happen. But I wonder what kind of trauma history the mom has that would make her jump to the trafficking thing in particular. Again, it is a thing. Trafficking is a thing for sure. I've actually had clients and other people on this podcast talking about it. It's way more prevalent than society will like to admit. Even in the United States, it is a rampant problem for sure. And a young, naive woman, young, naive girl, teenage girl is definitely a target for those kinds of events, even assaults, roofies, date, rape, drugs, these kinds of things for sure. And you need to be educated on that. But I just wonder what kind of traumas the mom has in addition to the traumas that we heard her allude to, which is that her mother was being abused, which is a trauma, that she saw her mom laid up in bed with physical injuries from being abused from her mom's partner, and her mom drank all the time. So the themes there are witnessing violence, fear of safety, and also neglect. Emotional neglect is usually the case for that kind of lifestyle. So this is always the crucial times is the mom doesn't want her to do it, but also doesn't want to disappoint her daughter, and might hope that she can learn a thing or two, because all the kids are going to be transitioning to the mainstream world. And so there's a lot of things going on in the mom's mind. Of course, she's afraid. She wants to protect her child. So let's see how they navigate it. Often as a viewer, when we're watching something like this, you usually take one side or the other. You'll usually be on the mom's side or the daughter's side. I'm guessing most people are on the daughter's side. Like, yeah, let her do it. We want to see Lydia go to San Francisco. But that's not, as a therapist, how I think. How I think is there's no right or wrong to this. She can go to San Francisco. That's fine. She can also not. But how do the two of them negotiate this? How do they take care of each other in this process? How do they express themselves? How do they listen to each other? That's how a system operates, because it's not just this event that is important. It is how do we as a family navigate these events in general. That's the key. A lot of people focus on, well, what's right now? Okay, that's something you should think about. But the bigger thing you should be definitely thinking about is what precedent are we setting for future interactions like this? What precedent are we, what is our procedure when these sorts of things happen? Like one of the many things that could go wrong in a situation like this, whereas it could go really badly, the mom could come down really hard. So how do the two of them navigate this conversation is critical. Let's see how they do it.
Probably a week or a little over.
Okay. How are you going to pay for it?
Oh, the wedding will pay for it.
Okay. Driving or flying?
Oh, definitely flying.
Okay. Not only that, it's her first time flying. It's just, it's a stretch to me.
And the 3 other daughters are watching closely. They are paying very close attention to what's going to happen here. Lydia is leading the way, and the other 3 daughters are seeing, okay, what's happening here? Because this is their future, and all of them know that, even though the one to the left, what's her name? Mariah, she's older. Oh, no, wait. I've been saying that's Lydia. That's Mariah. Oh, my God. People have probably been going crazy in the comments. There's too many of them. Okay, so Mariah is the opinionated one. She's 16. Lydia is 15. That's why I made this. How many people in the comment section have been going, no, Kirk, you have it wrong. It's the wrong person's name. Okay, Mariah is the one who's opinionated and a rebel. Do I have that right? Yeah, and Lydia is the one that's responsible. She's the one on the left. Okay. So the last thing I looked down at this. So that's another important feature of this conversation that the mom has to navigate. How do I do this and send a message to the other kids? If I let Mariah do this, then what does that tell the younger kids? Now we're saying that that's okay. So I'm not just parenting Mariah in this moment. I'm parenting all the kids in my family, particularly the younger ones. So anyway, let's continue watching.
She's not one that I can just tell what to do and she'll just do it. So I do kind of have to be careful how I talk to her.
All right. So the mom is carefully considering. She wants to say no to this, which makes some sense. Given the way this family operates, this is a big difference. You could easily argue that Mariah, not Lydia, is not up to the task. She is young. She's 16. To do something like this is a pretty big deal. 2, she's not just any 16-year-old. She is an insulated 16-year-old. She even talked about how she is completely naive to a lot of things. She admitted that. So to just throw, should there be a little bit, can't they do a wedding in town a few times to get used to that whole thing and then maybe do a San Francisco trip? Plus, I'm guessing that she doesn't have to go on the trip, that Olivia, the photographer, would be able to find someone else. I'm guessing. I don't know. So on one hand, makes sense that the mom would be like, I don't know about this, given our family, given the fact that this is going too fast, given the fact that I'm not going to be there, given the fact that you're kind of a rebel to begin with and attracted to maybe the wrong side of the tracks at times, I want to say no. On the other hand, you heard her considering that I have to tailor my parenting to this particular child. I can't just operate from my preference because I know that Mariah, not Lydia, is probably just going to do it on her own. If I say no to her, it's going to cause so much distress in her that something bad will happen down the line. So maybe it's a better idea if I say yes, even though it's kind of scary to me, but in the bigger picture, it's the right move. That's a very intelligent, sophisticated, differentiated way that the mother is operating.
My thought is at this point, you have too much school. You're too far behind in school.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that right now?
Yes.
Okay, you're like several weeks behind?
Not several weeks
Yes,
behind.
you are. I
No,
could show
just
you
in book reports because I hate reading.
Okay.
That's the only thing I'm...
Now, they're homeschooled, so the mom knows everything about their schooling. It sounds like there's some debate as to how far she is behind. I don't know if this is the right tactic to take with Mariah. The mom is trying to push back, and she is bringing up the schooling. And maybe that's a pattern that she gets into as a way of trying to convince the kids to do something. It's like, oh, remember school, when in reality behind that is a fear of safety that they don't want to get into with the kids. I would have rather heard the mom say something along the lines of, look, San Francisco it's a big town, it's a big city, and I have in my younger years spent time in bigger cities, And I'm here to tell you that it's not a den of evil, but there are a lot of bad things, and you haven't been exposed to those things, and you're young. And I like Olivia, and she is a smart, responsible person, but she is young too. If I was with you, I would be able to help you with this stuff, but it's just too much of a leap, and that really makes me afraid. Mariah, not Lydia, I think you're a smart young woman, and I think you could probably handle it, but it's too much too fast for me. So let's definitely head in that direction. I don't want to take away the overall thing that you want to do, which is to do more adventurous things. For sure, I want to do that. But let's take our time. So if the mom had said something like that, I would feel better about it as an observer because it would be from the heart. It would give hope for the future. It would value herself. It'd be talking about your own feelings as a parent. Usually in a situation like this, particularly with a 16-year-old, you can be honest about this. It's like, look, I'm terrified. It's not that I want to control you. I've seen bad things happen. And I know that eventually you're going to get to that place where you will be on your own and you'll be making those choices. But I just feel like you're too young for that right now, or, something along those lines, instead of, schoolwork, because, from Mariah's point of view, she's like, no, I could catch up on my schoolwork before I go. That's not, it's sort of an oblique issue to the main issue that I think is at the core of what the mother is coming from. But so let's see what the mom says here.
2 weeks behind or something in book reports.
I haven't seen a consistent really getting schoolwork done thing, and every week you're a little bit further behind. I don't know how you're gonna get caught up on school.
So the mom is doubling down on the school, and you see the skepticism in Mariah's eyes. She probably knows, I don't know, but I suspect that Mariah is saying, I don't know about this. Okay, sure, I'm a little behind in book reports, but come on, Mom. This is a weekend. It's not going to break my schooling. I can always make up for time. I'm being homeschooled, for crying out loud. So all you got to do is say, okay, give me another couple of weeks or so. She probably knows that something is up. Now, the mom has been, I'm guessing, neglected, possibly abused, but definitely neglected as a child, having a mother that's struggling with being abused and using alcohol to cope with that, and maybe her own traumas, the mom's traumas from before she was even adult. And that is going to cause a lot of neglect. It's also going to potentially cause a lot of inability to learn about what healthy parenting looks like. I will say that mom's doing pretty well thus far. Like I said, I would wish more of speaking from the heart, because I'm guessing we would see less of that skeptical face. Let's see what the mom says.
She really exaggerates and says I was so behind, but to be honest, she gave me a little extra. And I don't think this is going well. This does not look good.
Dad's home. Dad's home.
So I was really glad when Dad walked in. I was like, perfect timing.
All right, so that's interesting. Maybe the dad is more the permissive one and the mom is the more restrictive one. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a notable thing. And I'm going to write that down on my genogram, making sure that I indicate that Mariah and her parents, I think I've been referring to her as Lydia for I don't know how long now. I don't even know how long I've been referring to her as Lydia. How long have I been referring to her as Lydia? Maybe it's just for a little bit. Anyway, let's see now, with the addition of Dad, who Mariah sees more as the permissive one. Let's see how they work this out. Now we have a two-parent system now, where the parents are both parenting this situation potentially at the same time. How do they work together? This is a key scene for observation.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey.
What's up?
When we were little, if we were at church and we wanted to go play with friends or anything, we knew, do not go ask Mom, go ask Dad, because he's going to say yes. Mom's going to say no, whether you tell her what it is or not.
So
there's nothing wrong with that. It's only a problem if the parents build up contempt towards each other, or they are totally cross-parenting and screwing up the kids. There's nothing wrong with one parent being a little bit more permissive. there is something potentially damaging not only to the marriage but also to the kids to have parents going in completely different directions. So I don't have any indication as to differentiating between a healthy difference in a parent and an unhealthy one. Maybe it'll play out here.
In the 90s?
96.
Okay.
Yeah, was it
But
cold?
my trip was short, and it's a city that's a little on the fringe in some respects. So I don't know. My first reaction deep down goes, well, it's a very liberal city with a lot of problems. We've got drug use, homeless issues, and what is she going to run into out there? What problems could crop up?
Now, I will say that this is a stereotype that as a person from a liberal city with legalized marijuana and alcohol everywhere, that it is a stereotype that is not true necessarily. This notion that drugs are a city thing. There are plenty of drug abuse problems in small cities. I can't remember the stats, and I won't say it, but I wouldn't be surprised if I looked up the stats and found that in rural areas per capita, there is the same, if not more, drug use happening for a variety of speculative reasons. Sometimes there's economic depression happening in small towns that can drive people to suffer and thus need a substance to cope with that suffering. So it's a bit of a thing. Now, drug abuse on their farm, I'm guessing, is potentially zero. But drug abuse in the surrounding small town around them, I'm guessing it is definitely there. But it's per capita. So when you look at a city, you say, whoa, so many drug things and so much violence and murder, but it's per capita, of course, because in a city like San Francisco, I don't know how, it's like 1 million people or something. I don't know how many people live in San Francisco, but you have thousands and thousands of people. And so, yeah, the number of murders, the number of people suffering from drug addiction, the poundage of drugs in that town is high, but per capita, it isn't necessarily any different or even less, could be less than rural areas.
I just don't.
Yeah, I agree.
How's about this? If you can get caught up, and if you can finish all the schoolwork you need to finish before you leave, then you can go.
Yeah.
And if you can't, then you can't.
All right, so let's observe the system. The parents are agreeing, even though the dad is more permissive, he is carefully considering the issue. He's not flipping out. He's not putting people down. He's not calling out the character of anyone. In addition, the mom isn't calling the character. A anxious thing to do as a parent would to put her down and say like, "Oh, Mariah, you with all your questions and you're always attracted to the wrong things." These kinds of put downs, and that's usually because the parent is anxious about the confrontation, and as a shortcut around the confrontation, they just want to put the other person down to get the other person to shut up, which obviously doesn't work. But we see that the dad is carefully considering it. He is on board with the mom's perspective, and when the mom throws something out there of a bit of I would say, a pretty bold compromise, the dad is saying, yep, I agree with that too. So we see support. We see, people being non-complicated. And, I would think that this would be a good deal for Mariah. Because this is I have to always make sure I look down Mariah. That for her, this is a big deal. She really wants to do it, and to get caught up on schoolwork seems like it's probably doable. So let's see what she says.
Okay, I'm in for the challenge.
Can I have that in writing?
Sure.
Yeah.
Wait, where's my pencil? She didn't believe me. She was like, yeah, right.
So this presents some problems right away as a professional advisor to parents, because in my earlier career for the first 10 or 15 years, a good portion, maybe 20% of my clients were parents, and they were struggling with their kids. And so right away, I see some pitfalls. It's not a terrible thing. I mean, on the scale of things, it's not that bad. But the problem with this arrangement is that they haven't set a date on the schoolwork. So she could conceivably, Mariah could say, well, as long as I'm done with all my schoolwork before I go to San Francisco, then I'm good, right? So let's say she waits until the last few days before she goes to San Francisco to finally really kick it into high gear and try to finish it, and she doesn't finish it. Well, you already have the plane tickets bought, you have the hotel, you have the expectation to Olivia, who needs the assistant for the wedding photography, and now you're looking at a situation as a parent of saying, well, not only now do I have to punish my child and say, well, you didn't finish the schoolwork in time, but now Olivia is impacted, the wedding is impacted, people are losing money, and that's a potential problem. So if I were to advise the parents about this, I would say either just let her go, because the other problem is if you let her go and she doesn't finish the schoolwork, well, now you're setting a precedent to all the other kids that when you say something, it doesn't actually really mean anything, and you could sign a contract, and it could, as long as you work it right as a kid, you can sneak past it. So that's another problem that I usually would explain to parents. So what I would advise the parents, and I would say something like, have either just let her go, or have a criterion that she can fulfill before the decision needs to be made as to whether or not you need to buy the ticket. Usually you would at least say a number of weeks time would have to happen so that Olivia could find someone else to assist her for the wedding. So I would say that. I might also say, like, is there something else she could do to demonstrate that she's a responsible person between now and then, between now and the next few days? Maybe there's a big project that you're like, well, okay, you know what, school, that's a bit of a squishy area. But as you know, we've been trying to clean the shed. And so if you clean the shed from top to bottom by yourself in the next few days, then we'll say yes. But only if it's completely done by Sunday or something like that. Well, then you're logistically in a position where if she doesn't complete it, then she doesn't go and you're good. But if she does complete it, then you'll know well in advance of her actually leaving. So there's that. The other thing that we see is a contract being written, which I actually give 2 thumbs up on. A lot of parents should formally do this, particularly when it's around touchy decisions like this. This indicates to me that maybe Mariah in the past, or maybe other kids as well, but particularly Mariah, will have a verbal exchange, and the parents will get kind of forgetful as to what they said. And Mariah will try to sneak, no, you said this, you said that. And the parents are like, I don't think I said that. So maybe they learn through experience that they have to write it down. Otherwise, there will be, shenanigans later on.
But I know I'm going to get it all done.
Okay, it's in writing.
Like, I don't give myself an option. I have to get it done because California is something I'm going to do.
But overall, what I will say is that everyone handled it in an extremely healthy way. You asked me to watch a lot of reality TV, and there's a lot of dysfunction and usually indications of past trauma. What we're seeing here are a ton of strengths. This was a difficult situation. The parents were worried, particularly the mom, for reasons that are common to parents. Loving parents worry about their kids. That means they love their kids. I would imagine a lot of mainstream parents would say no to this. No, you're not flying halfway across the country with your sister-in-law who is 21 years old and shooting a wedding that probably will have alcohol and maybe other drugs at it. No, you're not going to do that. It's way too adult of a situation. A lot of parents would say no to that. A lot of parents would say yes to that. Both are fine. So the point is that they handled this very well. We also see Mariah, as she was getting challenged, she wasn't completely losing her crap. She didn't throw things. She didn't throw a tantrum. She listened. It sounded like if she was going to be told no to, that she would not like it, but she would live with it. But she was really wanting it. And when they provided the negotiation, she said, yeah, I will do that. I'm going to prove it to you. So there are, and that indicates a track record going back to the beginning of Mariah's life that will lead up to that moment of health. So I think we're seeing a lot of healthy things. Now, who knows, maybe episode 5, I'll see that this family is a complete train wreck. Who knows? But for now, we see a lot of strengths.
It's scary. It's scary to send a 16-year-old off to a big city like that, especially with Olivia. There's some tension between Olivia and I.
Interesting. Okay, so we're hearing from both Olivia and the mom, Kim, that there is tension between the two of them. So on my genogram, I'm going to mark that.
We both said if she can get her schoolwork done, she can go. That's a big if. They're growing up really fast, aren't they?
I feel like I'm in one of those fast forward, fast-paced scenes in a movie where so much is happening at once.
I can speed it up more if you want. I'm getting married now.
And then the ability for the family to talk about their feelings in a non-judgmental way, in a non-shameful way of, wow, things are moving really fast. Yes, wife of mine that I love. Things are moving very fast. It seems like a fast forward button. So there is support there. It might not be super explicit, but it definitely is there. When you express your feelings and you're scared as a parent, and to have the other parent say, yes, I'm right there with you. It is scary. This is scary. That instantly bonds people. It brings people down. It validates each other. It's in front of the kids. You're modeling how to express your emotions in a non-tantrum, non-shameful way, non-blaming way. They could have easily said that Mariah is pressing the fast forward button, but that's not what they're saying. They're saying, wow, it seems like the kids are growing up really fast. And you don't hear any negativity in there. You don't hear any blame. You don't hear any pathologizing of Mariah. They're just like, whoa, this is moving really quickly. And that's the baseline feeling. You always hear me talk about these sort of baseline feelings of fear and hurt. And what they're expressing right now is fear. Wow, this is scary. Instead of transferring it into anger and then hostility or denial or something, it would be easy to transfer that into anger and then into a hostility of, hey, husband of mine, how come you didn't speak up for me? Or, hey, wife of mine, how come you made that deal? That was a terrible deal. Now we're screwed. If she gets hurt in San Francisco, it's all your fault. We can absolutely imagine a scenario like that happening. It did not happen here because of perhaps the way they were raised. It's interesting to think about the mom, that she exhibited a lot of strength in that, and a lot of differentiation, a lot of maturity, a lot of emotional awareness and regulation. So even though her mom was being abused, even though her mom abused alcohol, I wonder if she had a good enough relationship with her mom such that she developed in a healthy way. Or Kim had grandparents who were involved in her life, or whoever, other people who helped her to have a security and an attachment security growing up. I don't know. But anyway, looks like it's the end of that episode. That was interesting. Let me know in the comments if you want me to continue with this, because I may or may not. Sometimes I like to do these kind of one-off experiments to see if it's worthy of continuing with. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.